Step 2, power mapping. Once you have identified and tested your theory of change, you need to understand the power relations surrounding the issue. Who has the power to help you create the change you want, and who will oppose it? Who are the key target groups and decision makers that you need to move? Who is undecided or conflicted about your issue? Whose minds might be changed? Is this group big enough to be able to make the change you want? Which individuals and groups can you work together with? How can you grow your power? Power mapping is best done using a grid where you can map the different actors by their power and their level of support. This mapping exercise helps us identify our key campaign allies and targets and helps us think about how we can best work with or against them. Think about what resources they have. It might be money, elected office, or decision-making authority. What needs to happen to shift the forces of change and tip the balance?
Step 3, strategy and tactics. A campaign strategy sets out how you will turn the resources you have into the power you need to win the change you want. It's also about being focused. What specifically do you want your campaign to achieve, and how are you going to get there? How will you know when it has been successful and that you are making progress? Smaller tactical goals are important stepping stones on a path to your campaign objective. Strategy is one of the most important parts of campaigning. It's what makes sure that we're using our time in the best way possible. It helps us focus our resources and be accountable to the individuals, groups, and networks we are working with. Tactics are the many specific actions through which a strategy is implemented. A strategy without tactics is just ideas, but tactics without a strategy can waste resources, so the two must work together in harmony.
Step 4, storytelling. Your campaign tells a story about what the world is like now and how it works, what the problem is, and what the solution looks like, who's involved, who's not involved, and who holds the power to take action. It's easy to assume that the issue or problem would be resolved if only people knew X, Y, or Z. For instance, if they knew we were so dependent on ecosystems, we would solve the environmental crisis. If they knew the truth about colonialism, we would stop imperial wars. If they knew how important encryption is, they would defend, extend, and promote it. The problem is that this thinking leads us to assume that the challenge stems from what people don't know and obscures what many of the problems we face are actually because of what people do know. That is, the beliefs, worldviews, and stories that our cultures generate. A common mistake we can all make is to imagine the human mind as a blank slate. We assume that if we craft a captivating message and repeat it over and over, eventually people will begin to listen. The human mind is more like a swamp. It's filled with living and breathing material, and anything put in it will interact with what is already there, sometimes in unexpected ways. Frames are the lenses through which we interpret, understand, and organize our experiences. So the practice of framing is crafting messages, using metaphors and drawing on emotions that interact with the frames that already exist in our minds. By paying attention to the narrative landscape in people's minds, we know how effective our story is likely to be, and also whether we'll need to challenge an existing negative story or create new stories. To do this, we create a story-based campaign strategy and engage in a battle of the narrative. So consider what story your campaign is telling. Imagine you are talking to a relative at a family gathering or a stranger in an elevator. Is it weakening a negative story, strengthening a positive story, introducing a new story altogether, or something else? Values become beliefs, which become norms, which become actions. To successfully tell our encryption story, we can think in frames. F, frame the issue. Does it reinforce the vision and values that we are promoting? Framing means defining the problem, who will be broadly impacted, and the solution. R, reframe opponent's story and reinforce our frame. Make sure your message is not just reiterating your opponent's frame. Reframing means changing the terms of debate on the issue. A, accessible to the audience. Who is your message trying to persuade? Be as specific as possible about the audience and ensure that the message is crafted in terms of language, context, and values that will be appealing to them. M, memorable. The message has got to be memorable, easy to spread, and sticky. How can you encapsulate your message in a symbol, slogan, or metaphor that captures the essence? E, emotional. People don't swing into action because of a pie chart. An effective message should speak to the person in terms of values and deliver some emotional impact. Trigger emotional responses with themes like tragedy, hope, anger, frustration, and joy. S, simple and short. This means to get to the core essence of the issue. What is the most important point of the issue? What is it that makes it matter to your audience?
Step 5, tracking progress. Once you have the shape of your campaign, a planning grid will help you work backwards from your goals to identify tasks, stepping stones, and landmarks. Evaluating the campaign is essential to understand what you have achieved, to be able to communicate that to supporters and others, and to learn lessons that aid you in your future campaigning. It should also allow you to recognize what you have built, what exists at the end that did not exist at the beginning. But evaluation isn't just something to do at the end of your campaign. It's a constant activity that will help you check in, make adjustments, and stay on track.